Today's video is going to be about DxO's PureRAW 5 piece of software. If you haven't heard of it, you're in for a treat. DxO's PureRAW 5 is probably one of the best, if not the best, RAW converters around today. Now, I say that as a RAW converter because that's basically all it's doing. It's taking your RAW file and demosaicing it. In other words, it's changing all the binary data into pixels, and it's also going to denoise or remove the noise from your images. And it's going to do so in such a way that you're going to be stunned at the quality at the end of the day. This is truly an amazing piece of software. There's a couple of things that I want to talk about before we get into the depth of this software. And the first thing is DxO released 5.3. They're out of the beta phase for their Fujifilm X-Trans process method. The second thing I want to talk about is I am an affiliate with DxO. They approached me and asked me to create some content for them, whether it's written words and blogs and articles or if it's videos. And I do have an affiliate link at the bottom. I would appreciate it if you'd use it, but you don't have to. All right. I will get a small commission, which will help keep this channel alive, but that's totally up to you. I just want to get this information out because this is an amazing piece of software, and man, you're going to love it. So there we go. That's it. That's all I wanted to say, that we're out of the beta and that I'm an affiliate, and I'm going to put the links and the discount code at the bottom in the description of the video. Let's get to it. In this video, I will be discussing the user interface, and I will be processing an NEF file shot at ISO 6400. In the next video, I will process other NEF files shot at an amazing 12,800 ISO, and then one shot at ISO 200. In the last part of this second video, I will process some Fujifilm X-Series RAW files, one shot at ISO 4000 and another one shot at ISO 160. What you see in front of you now is the entry screen, if you will, from the standalone version of the software. And I say standalone version because you can also use this as a plugin to Lightroom. Now, one of the things you have to understand is this software does not allow you to lighten or darken your image, and it does not allow you to do any color balancing, which is typically the two things that most people would want to adjust if their images were not captured properly. If your exposures are great and your color balance or white balance or daylight setting versus cloudy and all that kind of stuff is accurate, man, you're going to love this. Even if you're not color balanced properly or the exposure wasn't quite there, what you can do is you can export out of this application, you can export out a DNG file. That DNG file can now be edited in any piece of software that recognizes raw file format. You can also export out TIFFs and JPEGs. The other way you can actually use this piece of software is navigating, if you're on a Mac, navigating through your Finder window and then right-clicking on a raw file. You'll get a contextual menu that says, you want to edit with this or that, and you can choose DxO PureRAW 5 to do that as well. So let's discuss the interface here for a second. Obviously, in the center, you can see that there is a Add Raw Images kind of a thing going on here. And all you have to do is click on that icon right there, the plus sign, and you'll be asked to navigate to your folder with your images. If this window is not occupying your full screen like mine is, then you can drag and drop either images or folders of images into this interface. So now there's another way to get to your images besides clicking on this guy, and that would be to click on this guy up here, add images. They're all going to get you into the same place. Let's see how this guy plays its role as we go through the process. What I've got today are some images that I shot. I've got a couple of Nikon NEF files, and I have a couple of Fuji RAF RAW files. Now, across the top here, we have information, we have sorting and filtering. So there's no point in clicking on those right now. Let me go and get some images. So I'm going to click on this, and I've got a couple of images that, well, let's see. This one here, about a 200 ISO on that one. This guy here is 12,800. You're going to be blown away with the quality. But notice here that this is too dark, but I can't make that adjustment in PureRAW 5. PureRAW 5 is just here to convert the binary data to pixels, extract an amazing amount of detail, and to reduce the noise that's in the image. That's all it's going to do. So this image needs to be lightened, and the color balance needs to be adjusted. We can do that later in Adobe Camera Raw. But for now, just know that this is going to be an amazing thing. So here we go. We've got this guy, and this guy was shot at ISO 6400. So this was shot on my Nikon D3. This one was shot on, again, my Nikon D3. Both of them using, I believe, my 70-210 VR2 lens. Yeah, okay. And then this other one over here was shot on my D700, again, using the same lens. Let's open these guys up and add these photos to the interface. Now that we've got something going on in here, we can possibly see what's going on with this stuff. So let me click on this one to select it, and then I can come over here and click on the information icon, and it will tell me the ISO, f-stop, shutter speed, focal length, and all that fun stuff, ready to process. If I click on this guy, we can see that ISO is 12,800. Crazy. But it was a football game. It was at night and it rained all day. So before the game started, everything was mud. Anyways, and now we have this one here, and this was shot on my D700, same lens, and it was shot at ISO 200, which I think is the lowest ISO that D700 camera goes. Okay. So I click on that to release it. I'm going to come back over here and click on this image for a second. Then I'm going to come over here and click on this, and we can sort by name, ISO, or by date shot. If I click on ISO, you can see now the lowest ISO, the next higher one, the highest one. If I come over here by name, we go back to going horizontal across the interface. This guy over here will allow us to filter out our images. So let's say we have 30 or 40 images that we've just brought into the application. We can choose which ones are unprocessed, which ones have star ratings, color labels, ISO, f-stop if that's how you want to choose, all that fun stuff. There you go. I'm just going to click to get away from there. And now you can see that I have this view going on, which is a grid view. So we would have rows and columns and all that kind of stuff. And then we have this guy, but take a look at what we have in here. We have underneath the image, we have the option for star rating, and we have the file name. If I click on this, now we're just go ahead doing this kind of stuff. And I have a feeling that if we had some vertical images in here too, this whole thing would kind of shift and shape and show itself that way. Okay, so this image is the one I'm going to start with. And taking a look at it, you can see that it's a little underexposed. So I could get away with creating a JPEG or a TIFF and then just lightening it up in Photoshop or any other image editing piece of software. I could also export it out as a DNG and then go into whatever image editing software I want to use. In this case, I'm going to use Adobe Camera Raw, and I can go in and lighten that just a little bit. The white balance looks like it's pretty darn good. And these were dark burgundy sweaters. That's an orange pizza thing. Yeah, everything kind of good to go. In order to process this, we need to come down here and choose either process with preview or just process. And the difference between the two is this. Process with preview will display the image large for us to see. And I'm going to have it set up so that we have a split screen. So we have that vertical bar going across that we can actually drag left and right to see what the original image looks like, what the process version will look like. If you choose process, then whatever the parameters were from your previous process, these will be by default there, but you can change that. It's just a quick way. In other words, yeah, okay, so here we go. Let's just take this. Let's say I have a half a dozen images that I need to get out to the team or the blog or whatever. And I know that I process this, I test it out, it looks great. Then I choose the other 5 and I bring them in. I can just hit process. I don't have to look at them. I know what it's going to do because I thoroughly examined what was going to happen with this one. I hope that makes sense. So let me click on the process with preview. Now, this is the preview, process with preview that I was telling you about. So we get to see the image, and right now it's being displayed at 26%. We can zoom in. And if we zoom in, we can get a better, closer look at everything that's going on in here. So let me just, I found that, yeah, you can come in here and choose this, but you go right up to 200. Like, I don't want to go up to 200. I just want to go to 100%. So what if I just click on 100? There you go. All right, so this image was shot at ISO 6400. It's pretty high. And if I'm not mistaken, it was shot with my D3. So we're talking about quite an old sensor in here. But there you go. So now the right side has updated using the DeepPRIME 3 process. This is your vertical bar I was talking about, where we can go left and right with this to see how this image has been cleaned up. I mean, that's just ridiculous, the amount of noise reduction that this software is allowing to come through. The amount of the image that you see in this window is shown over here in the navigator window. This small little rectangle that's lighter than everything else is what's in the window. Okay, so now, like I said, this software is denoising. Oh yeah. And it's demosaicing, which, as far as I understand, is converting the binary data from your RAW file to actual pixels. So we have a couple of other options that are available to us depending on our file format. So right now I'm using DeepPRIME 3, which is better than DeepPRIME 2 and the original DeepPRIME. Then we have this one here, which is DeepPRIME XD2S/XD. XD stands for extra detail. And it says here, ultimate quality and extra details. This is ultimate quality. So I guess it depends, again, on your camera, sensor, and your lens you're using, which one you're going to want to choose. And, you're going to want to test this out as well. Down below, we have the luminance slider and the force detail. Here you can see the luminance value is set to 0 and the force details is set to 40. Well, I find this interesting that I can come back over here, move this down to not get rid of as much noise. And then if I double click, just like you can in so many other pieces of software, double click on the slider and it brings you back to where it was on that slider. But now it reads 40. So what I'm getting at is the default setting for luminance and force details is 40 and 40. The next thing I want to talk about is the optical corrections. Now this is something that is somewhat unique to DxO, and we have the ability to, 1, play with the lens sharpness optimization. We have the ability to remove the vignetting, remove chromatic aberration, and then lens distortion. Wow. Crazy stuff. Now, right now, you can see that my lens sharpness optimization is set to soft, and that value here on the slider is at 75. We have some presets. If I click on standard, which I'm thinking you guys might have on yours, you'll be at 100. We have a couple more, which would be strong and hard. So if standard was at 100, strong is 150, and hard is 200, all the way up. Now, depending on your image, the amount of high frequency detail in it, and the lens, camera, make, model, and sensor combination will determine whether you want to go soft, standard, hard, strong. We stay in standard right now. Did you see the difference? If I go over to hard, I want you, okay, before I do that, I want you to keep your eye in this area here and possibly up here just to see the difference. Do you see how that looks really, really crunchy? Yeah. And this looks really, really crunchy up here. I don't think I want to use that in this one. I think I'll stick with standard at this point. Now, if we're working just for screen display purposes, I guess we can get away with whatever we see here will be displayed on a screen. But if we want to go print something, sometimes we have to make our image look a little bit more to an exaggeration. And when we press print, that exaggeration is reduced or nullified just based on physics with ink going on paper. That's for a different discussion. Here, I'm going to leave it at standard. We've got the option to remove any vignetting in the corners, remove any chromatic aberration, and lens distortion. This is one of the things that DxO is really, really famous for, is their DxO lens distortion correction stuff. That's basically what I want to talk about when it comes to this panel. What we're going to do, process this image, and then we're going to do some comparison. And the comparisons are going to be done in Adobe Photoshop. So let's see what we got going on here. All right, we've got DeepPRIME 3 Ultimate Quality, or we could go with XD to XD. Now, the other thing I want to mention at this point in time, this version does not support the X-Trans 5 sensor, which is out on the XT5 and whatever. All right, but I am sure the people at DxO are working on updating that as well. All right, so we've got that. And then here it says image cropped to original ratio, maximum rectangle, complete image area. I haven't played with that. I don't know the difference. I just leave it at this. I get my image, I'm done. All right. So now in the upper right-hand corner, we have three little icons. The one that's highlighted in blue is the one that is the panel or tab that we're in. So right now we're in this guy, which is our process. The next one is masking. This is an amazing. Notice we're not in split view anymore. We're in the full view at this point in time. But what this will allow us to do is to paint in areas that we want to have the noise reduction applied to. And we can do this in layers or levels or depth, if you will, creating the illusion of depth somehow, some way, however you want to. We start off with a layer mask, and you can start painting in here and painting so that we can reduce the noise on the jersey and the face, but not necessarily on the background. This is not the best image to talk about this, but there we go. And what we can do is we can create multiple masks. You can duplicate it. You can create an invert of your mask. Sometimes it's easier to select what you don't want than what you do want. Or we can actually create another mask and we can paint in different opacities for each layer if that's what you want. So that's all that. But down here we have the denoising and demosaicing once again with our luminance and our force details. Although they say 0 and all that kind of stuff, we're where we need to be. All right. And I'm just going to make sure that this is set to soft, which is 100% or 100 value and all that kind of stuff. I don't use this very often, but I will create a video tutorial showing you how to do this. The last one is, looks like a, out you go. And this is what we're going to be using. This tab is used for exporting out our images, or should I just say saving them out, whatever you want to call it. So now, up at the top here, we have something called presets. We'll get into that a little bit later, but just know that all of the configurations that we're working on in the first tab based on processing methods and luminance and detail extraction, all that kind of stuff. If you deviate from the norm or the standard or the default, however you want to call it, then you might want to create a preset. You can create a preset based on file format that you're exporting out and all that fun stuff. Okay, so here we go. Right now, you can see that I have this set up to output format or export a DNG and a TIFF. Now, I don't have the JPEG set up, but we will. All right, we will. So let's take a look here. If I click off this and just do the DNG, then this software is telling me that I'm going to need between 34 and 55 megabytes of disk space. If I include a TIFF with that, now we're up to 66 to 90, 91. All right, that's about 30% more. Now, if I come over and on TIFF, we have the option of going 8-bit, 8-bit compressed, or 16-bit. And depending on what you want to do, a lot of people like to choose 16-bit. Just know that 16-bit is twice as much as 8-bit, so your file size being used, let's just turn this off for a second and see. All right, 8-bit is 32.7 to 36.1. If I come in here and go 16-bit, now we're at twice the amount. Okay, so just know that that's going to affect file size, but you'll have more depth, almost like having a raw file, almost like having that much depth to work with. And there's also other third-party applications that have nothing to do with photography itself that may require 16-bit images. All right, okay. So now if I come over here and go to the JPEG, now we have this option, and of course you have varying quality sizes. Yours may have defaulted to 90. I always put it up to 100. And then for JPEGs only, we have something called smart lighting. Smart lighting is something that DxO is known for as well. And what it does is the software will look at the overall image and then try to balance things out a little bit. Okay, so now if I click on smart lighting, you saw this side of the image get a little bit brighter. If I bring this all the way up, you might or might not. Let's see. There it is without, and there it is with smart lighting. So it does something to your image, for sure, for sure. I'm going to click on the DNG option, the TIFF option, the JPEG option, and the smart lighting option for JPEGs. Both the JPEG quality and the smart lighting sliders are set to 100. So now we got here, we can go to image folder, and the destination could be the original image folder. We could choose to put things in a subfolder, or we can choose a custom. So I'm going to put these in my original folder. I'm just going to leave them in the original folder. File renaming. Normally, I don't like to rename my files. You can see the file name down at the bottom here. File name is 0328-006.nef. So let's see if I can come in here and rename my file. I can do that with the date hyphen and the original file name. I can come in here and file name with a sequence, file name processing method. That might be something. I think that's what I want. right? So the file name is now going to be DxO DeepPRIME 3. That works. I like that. Now, if after we're done processing this, I want to actually open this up in Lightroom or Photoshop or whatever, I can choose to do that. Lightroom Classic, Lightroom, and Adobe Photoshop, or select your own software. They're just going with the most common ones that they assume people are using. And you can also choose to export with the original RAW files. I don't need to do that. It's because of the way I do my file organization stuff. I don't need that option. So we're all good to go. And I like this for testing purposes to put that in, but I don't want to have that in once I'm finished testing and I'm happy with the results I get from my testing. I don't need to have that in, but for testing purposes, yeah, I want that in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the process now. Now it's going to start processing, and you can see that there's a little blue progress bar here, and it's got to travel all the way across. And down at the bottom, it says processing ... and 0 of 1 images processed. So now this is going to take a little bit of time on my old machine here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording and we'll pick it up again once this is done. Okay, so now that we have the DeepPRIME 3 version processed and sent out to its destination folder, I want to do the exact same thing for XD2S/XD on the same image. That way we can compare them later on in Photoshop. All right, so I'm going to click on Process with Preview, and I'm in the top tab over here, which is where we choose our process, and I'm keeping luminance at 40, force details at 40, and I'm choosing to use all of the optical corrections, including lens sharpness optimization, using the standard method at this point. Now I want to go to the output panel and come over here, and I'm only going to be exporting out the TIFF in this case. Don't need to do the JPEG and don't need to do the DNG. You've already seen how that stuff works. Actually, I probably have already cleaned out that folder that I'm going to, and the folder I'm going to is the ISO 6400 folder. Because I'm using the process file name using process method, they can both reside in the same folder because the names are going to be different. So I'm going to click on process now. And as in before, this is going to take a little while. So I'm just going to stop, and then we can come back to this as soon as the processing is done. Okay, so it looks like this processing is done. Let's go to the Finder to check it out. There we go. We're in the ISO 6400 folder, and as you can see, I have both methods sitting here. So now what I want to do is I want to open up these guys in Photoshop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of these files, and then because Photoshop is currently set as my default piece of software to open TIFFs, all I have to do is double click one of the thumbnail previews here, and we're in Photoshop. There we go. We're opened in Photoshop. This one here is XD2S, and I'm just going to move this guy over here, and this one is my DeepPRIME 3. So I'm going to take the XD2S version, and I'm going to drop it right there. I'm going to take this XD2S and close it, and I'm going to rename this layer XD2S, just so we're clear. Double click that, and I'm going to do a Command or Control 1 to get me at 100% preview. The images are a little dark, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a curves adjustment layer. I'm going to set this blending mode to screen, and I'm going to set the opacity to about 7. Now, this may be brighter than I normally would choose, but it's for illustration purposes only. All right. So right now I have the XD2S file showing. And if we take a look inside here, we can see there is some noise still in there, but it's probably more texture for the fabric than noise. And if I turn off the visibility of that and go to the DeepPRIME 3, we'll see that we still have some noise in there. All right. The other thing I want to take a look at is how it's working with edge details. So let's take a look at the goalie mask here. And I'm particularly looking at the bars that are in here. And on the edges where we have a contrast, we can see that there's a dark line on either side all around. And I want to now view what that looks like here. And you can see that in the XD2S, that area seems to be smoother for the detail. Let's come back over here, take a look again. See how it looks like it's a little more jagged, crunchy, whatever you want to call it. Back over here, see how it's much, much smoother. Okay, so there we go. That concludes this test. And now I want to go on and show you the differences in my 12,800 ISO football shot. So let's go see that.